The beating in the alley. The city of Ravenbrook had always been a place where justice was a luxury, not a guarantee. The police ruled the streets, not with honor, but with fear. Among them were officers like Sergeant Cole and Officer Briggs, men who didn't see badges as symbols of duty, but as a license to control, to dominate, and to destroy lives. That night, a young boy named Ethan Reynolds walked home alone, cutting through the alleyways as he had done many times before. He was only 10 years old, small for his age, dressed in his school uniform, carrying a backpack filled with books. But to Cole and Briggs, he wasn't just a kid. He was a target. "Hey you," Cole barked, stepping in front of the boy. "What are you doing out here, huh?" Ethan froze. I'm just going home, sir." Briggs smirked. "Yeah, and what's in the bag?" "Stolen goods." Ethan shook his head quickly. "No, just my school stuff." Cole wasn't interested in answers. He grabbed Ethan by the collar, lifting him off the ground. "Kids like you don't belong in this part of town. You think you can just walk around here like you own the place?" The first strike came fast, a slap across Ethan's face that sent him to the ground. He gasped, his tiny hands gripping the pavement as tears welled in his eyes. Briggs stepped forward, laughing. "Looks like this one needs to learn some respect." Then came the baton. The first hit slammed into Ethan's ribs. He cried out. Another blow struck his leg. The boy curled up, trying to protect himself. The officers didn't stop. Not until the black SUV pulled up. The door opened, and a man stepped out. General Marcus Reynolds, the father of the boy they had just beaten, and the last man they should have ever crossed. The wrath of a father. The streetlights cast an eerie glow on General Reynolds as he stood there, staring at the two officers towering over his son. His uniform was crisp, his medals reflecting the dim light. But it wasn't his appearance that made Cole and Briggs go pale. It was his eyes. Cold, calculated. The eyes of a man who had seen war, who had commanded soldiers, who had ended men without hesitation. Reynolds stepped forward. "Get your hands off my son." Briggs tried to stammer an excuse. "Sir, we didn't know." Crack. Reynolds moved faster than either of them expected. His fist connected with Briggs's jaw, sending him sprawling onto the pavement. Blood splattered against the brick wall. Cole reached for his baton. Big mistake. Before he could swing, Reynolds grabbed his wrist and twisted. Snap! Cole howled in pain as his own weapon clattered to the ground. The general grabbed him by the collar, pulling him close. "You think beating a child makes you tough?" His voice was a low growl, filled with barely contained rage. "You think you can do whatever you want because of that badge?" Cole struggled, his breath shaky. It was a mistake." Reynolds smirked. "You're right. And now, you're going to pay for it." He shoved Cole backward, sending him crashing against the dumpster. He turned his attention to Ethan, kneeling down beside him. "Son, can you stand?" Ethan nodded weakly, wiping the tears from his face. "I think so." Reynolds exhaled, brushing a hand over his son's bruises. His jaw tightened. This wasn't over. No more corruption. Within an hour, the entire police precinct was in chaos. General Reynolds had made a call. Not just to internal affairs, not just to the mayor, but to his own people. The ones who didn't answer to corrupt city officials. The ones who operated at a level far beyond local law enforcement. FBI agents swarmed the station. Body cameras were seized. Complaints from other victims were uncovered. Testimonies were taken. Cole and Briggs were dragged from their homes, their badges ripped from their uniforms. By morning, every major news station in the country was broadcasting their faces. Ravenbrook Police Scandal. Officers brutalized General's son. Citywide investigation launched into police corruption. No one is above the law. For the first time in years, the people of Ravenbrook felt hope. The streets whispered of justice. And as General Reynolds watched from his office, his son sitting beside him, he knew one thing for certain. No one would ever touch his child again. And if they tried, they wouldn't live to regret it. The real enemy. The fall of Sergeant Cole and Officer Briggs was only the beginning. The corruption inside the Ravenbrook Police Department ran deeper than anyone imagined. General Marcus Reynolds knew that men like Cole and Briggs were just pawns in a much bigger game. Someone had given them the power to act without fear. Someone had protected them for years. And now, that someone had a problem. His name was Commissioner Richard Kane, the man who ruled the city from the shadows. He had connections to powerful crime syndicates, politicians, and even private military contractors. And when Kane saw the headlines about the downfall of his officers, he didn't get scared. He got angry. The warning. Late at night, in a dimly lit parking garage, a black car pulled up beside a sleek limousine. A well-dressed man in his 50s stepped out, Commissioner Kane. A shadowy figure leaned against the limo, smoking a cigar. Vincent Morello, the city's most feared crime lord. Kane exhaled sharply. "We have a problem." Morello chuckled. "No, you have a problem. Your guys got sloppy." Kane clenched his fists. "This isn't just about those officers. This is about Reynolds. He's digging too deep." Morello took a slow drag from his cigar. "So, what do you want me to do? Send a message?" Kane shook his head. "No messages. No threats. Just end him." Morello smirked. "Consider it done." The ambush. Marcus Reynolds was driving home from the hospital. Ethan was recovering well, and for the first time in days, the general allowed himself to breathe. Then he noticed the black SUV in his rearview mirror, and another one up ahead. It's a trap. The road was empty. No witnesses. Then gunfire. Bullets shattered his windshield. Tires screeched as Reynolds swerved, barely avoiding the barrage of bullets. The SUV ahead slammed to a stop, blocking the road. Armed men spilled out, their faces covered. Reynolds had seen ambushes before, but he had never been the target. He reached into his glove compartment, his .45 pistol. One clip. No backup. The men surrounded his car. One of them knocked on his window with the barrel of an assault rifle. "Come out, General." Nice and slow. Reynolds exhaled. Then, bang! A single shot through the glass. The gunman dropped, his blood splattered across the pavement. Before the others could react, Reynolds kicked open the door, using it as cover. 2 more shots, 2 more men down. Chaos erupted. The remaining gunman fired, but Reynolds was already moving. Years of combat training took over. He ducked, rolled, and fired again. Another one down. Then silence. Bodies on the ground. Blood on the pavement. Only one man left standing. Reynolds grabbed him by the collar, slamming him against the hood of his car. "Who sent you?" The man spat blood. "You're dead, Reynolds. You just don't know it yet." Reynolds pressed the gun to his head. "Tell me. Now." The man smirked. "Commissioner Kane sends his regards." Reynolds didn't hesitate. Bang! The last assassin dropped. Reynolds wiped the blood from his face, breathing heavily. This wasn't just police corruption anymore. This was a war. And now, he was coming for Kane. No more warnings. The next morning, Commissioner Kane sat in his high-rise office, sipping coffee as he read the newspaper. Mysterious shootout leaves 5 dead. Gang violence or something more? Kane smirked. Problem solved. Then his phone rang. He answered. "Who is this?" A voice came through, calm, steady, dangerous. "You tried to kill me, Kane. Now it's my turn." Kane's blood ran cold. "Reynolds." No more warnings. Then the line went dead. Kane looked out his window, suddenly feeling like the most hunted man in the city. Because Marcus Reynolds wasn't just a father. He wasn't just a soldier. He was a man with nothing to lose. And he was coming. The plan for revenge. General Marcus Reynolds had always been a man of strategy. He didn't just go to war, he calculated war. And this time, his enemy wasn't on foreign soil. It was right here, in his own city. Commissioner Richard Kane and crime lord Vincent Morello thought they could control Ravenbrook. They were wrong. Reynolds spent the next 48 hours gathering intel, making calls to people who owed him favors, ex-military, undercover operatives, and even a few good cops who were tired of working under Kane's corrupt command. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about cleansing the city. The trap is set. Commissioner Kane sat in his penthouse, whiskey in hand, bodyguards surrounding him. He was nervous. Reynolds wasn't just a man, he was a ghost. Every attempt to find him had failed. Morello's men were disappearing. Safe houses were compromised. Then the power cut out. Darkness swallowed the penthouse. Kane's guards drew their weapons. The emergency lights flickered on, just in time to see the red laser dots appear on their chests. Then bang, 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 silent shots, suppressors. The guards dropped before they even realized what was happening. Kane stumbled backward. No. Then he saw him. Marcus Reynolds stepped through the shadows, his pistol aimed straight at Kane's head. "You should have stayed out of my way," Reynolds said coldly. Kane's hands shook. "Listen, we can make a deal. You don't have to do this." Reynolds stepped closer. "You sent men to kill my son." Kane swallowed hard. "I didn't know. I swear." Morello gave the order. Reynolds smirked. "Then I guess you're useless to me." "Kereke." One punch. Kane hit the floor, his nose shattered. He coughed, spitting blood. Reynolds grabbed him by the collar. "Where's Morello?" Kane hesitated. Bang! A bullet grazed Kane's leg. He screamed. "Where?" Reynolds barked. "Warehouse. Pier 17. Tea tonight. He's meeting with his men," Kane gasped. Reynolds stood, adjusting his jacket. "Thanks." Kane sighed in relief, until he heard the click of Reynolds' pistol. Bang! A single shot between the eyes. Kane slumped over, lifeless. One down. One to go. The final showdown. Pier 17 was a fortress. Armed men patrolled every corner. Black SUVs lined the docks. Inside the warehouse, Vincent Morello sat at a table, surrounded by his top lieutenants. "Reynolds is coming," one of them said nervously. Morello exhaled smoke from his cigar. "Let him. We'll put him in the ground." Outside, Reynolds was already in position. He had one advantage. They were expecting an attack. He was giving them a war. With a single press of a detonator. Boom. An explosion rocked the side of the warehouse. The guards panicked, turning their attention to the flames. That's when Reynolds struck. He moved like a ghost, weaving through the chaos. Headshots. Clean kills. No wasted bullets. Inside, Morello flipped the table in frustration. "Kill him. Kill that son of a..." Crash. The warehouse doors burst open. Smoke filled the room. Reynolds walked in, slow, controlled, like a reaper collecting souls. Morello's men fired. Reynolds ducked, rolled, fired back. 2 down. 3. 1 left. Morello. The crime lord grabbed a shotgun and pointed it at Reynolds. "You think you're some kind of hero? You're just like me." Reynolds stared at him, unblinking. "The difference is, I don't miss." Bang! Morello's body hit the ground, a bullet hole in the center of his forehead. The city's biggest crime boss was dead, and with him, the corruption that had plagued Ravenbrook. Peace at last. The next morning, the headlines were everywhere. Police commissioner found dead. Mysterious killings shake Ravenbrook. Crime boss Vincent Morello executed in warehouse shootout. The city was quiet, peaceful. Marcus Reynolds sat on a park bench, watching his son Ethan play on the swings. For the first time in a long time, he could breathe. No more threats. No more corrupt cops. No more war. But deep down he knew. Somewhere, someday, someone else would try to take control. And when they did, he'd be ready. The end.